going to show you is a technique that I was taught by a very good friend of mine who is an expert. She's an amazing artist, and I'll see stuff that she's done because she's my daughter's mother-in-law. So she makes stuff for my daughter, and I just drool over it. And so every once in a while, I say, "Okay, Carol, you got to show me how to do this." So this was a set of placemats that she made my daughter a couple of years ago, and they're all stamped and heavily quilted. And I'll pass some of them around so you can take a look at them. But I thought it was a really cool idea. People have been talking about the whole pillow exchange and what kinds of things you could do for your pillow. This is a perfect way to decorate the front of the pillow. And it's super, super simple. You can get as elaborate as you want to or as simple as you want to. So basically, Buffalo Princess, there's some handouts. We only printed 15, not how many people are going to be here today, so we can get some more handouts if anybody needs one on before.
And you can take a picture of it. We'll send her a digital
We
version.
have it digitally, so
I'll send that to Clara so she can include it in the.
so the idea is that you can use anything to print with. All you have to do is cover it with paint and stamp it on a piece of fabric. And that's the directions. So you pick what you want to use and you cover it with paint, and then you take your piece of fabric and you take your painted whatever and you stick it on there. A few little tips to help get better composition. You might want to think about how you're going to lay things out and how big a piece of fabric is so that you do compose a picture, because if you don't, you end up with messes like this. This was my mess. I did it in my head. It looked great. I mean, it's going to be beautiful. But I got carried away. And, it just looks like a blob of paint to me. So I'm not using that one. And sometimes I kept trying to fix it, so I kept putting more on top of it, just like so then I started with apples. Apples are really cool. If you're going to use fruit or anything that has a high moisture content, cut it the day before. Because if you try to put paint on something that's wet, guess what? It doesn't stick. And it's got to stick just enough that you can cover it and then stamp it. So I cut these apples yesterday. So they're ready to use. But what you'll do is just cover it and then we'll press it down onto the fabric. But think about how you want your apples to look. So I was doing a trial piece and I was just stamping away with apples, and you can see that there's some that are light colors, some that are dark colors. So you can stamp more than once. You put paint on and you stamp, and you're going to get a dark color. And if you want to play around with it, you can do different shades by just keep stamping that same piece before you put more paint on it. So it'll do more than one stamp with one covering of paint. But this is kind of a hodgepodge. And as my friend Carol kindly pointed out, things generally look better in a row. So if you are looking for artistry in your work, you might want to think about that composition.
I just want to say your hodgepodge looks like a bunch of butterflies.
Does it? Well, I may have to go back and rethink on that.
It just has to add butterfly bodies to it.
There you go. Well, somebody salvage this one for me. Okay? Turkey feathers. So as you're doing this stamping, so you can see that the pieces I'm going to show you have been stamped. They also have the background colored as well. So it's a 3-step process. You do your stamping first, and you have to let it dry, and it has to be really dry, like overnight dry, before you start doing the background colors, because you're using fabric paints, and for the most part, what you're doing the stamping with is paint at its original viscosity. When you're doing the background, you're watering it up so that it'll flow better, because you don't want it to flow when you do your stamp. You want it to stick. So you're taking the same paints and you're watering them down. They're going to flow into what you've stamped. So you have to be a little bit careful about how you put things together, because as you start putting your background colors in, if you get really close to the edge of your painted piece and both are wet, it does this. But you know what? That's going to look really cool when I get this all done and get it quilted. But you do have to pay attention to that. So on some of these, the background colors are leading through the design, because that was a choice that was made, was to cover the whole back, all of the white space. This, by the way, is celery. At the end of the celery,
Big.
and it looks like roses, doesn't
It
it?
does.
Oranges, same kind of thing. You want to think about the moisture content. You really have to let these dry out before you try to stamp them. But this one, the background is really heavy. When you look at it, you'll see that it's more painted than watercolory looking. It's more oil looking than watercolor. Again, design choices to think about as you're going. When you're doing it like this, you're using the paint at a higher viscosity, so it's stiffer, so it doesn't run as much. When I was doing some of the ones I did, I had the back really wet. I'm looking for the sun. Here's another example. So you can do lots of different things with the background. As you color, you can be streaky. This one I think is gorgeous. This is one of Beth's, right, Beth? We're working on this at the house, and I happen to have a table that has this a metal table that has this lattice work in it, and we were laying them out on the table to dry. Right back out there and looked at it. It's really cool. The one that I showed you of the orange, I laid this on top of a rock, the top part, and that's where the color came from, the splotchiness came from, which I also thought was really good.
So did you put it on top of the rock to draw?
Yeah, because it was a really high day and we were just laying them all over the place. You should have seen my patio. It was really colorful. When you're doing the stamping, it gets dry, then you do the background, however you decide you want to do it. Be prepared for accidents and surprises, because you think it's going to look one way and you get it all together and you go, huh, that's not what I thought it was going to do. But you get some really interesting pieces when you do it that way. After the background is painted, then you can go back in and you can add some stenciling, if you will, outlining. This one's got with a fabric marker, just outline the shape to define things a little bit.
Pass those around so we can see.
Okay.
It's hard to see.
This one, the coloring, the detailing will work. This is, can I tell? So Beth got this all done, and we're looking at it, and I said, that was like the back. So then she went and detailed it on the front too. So both sides of that are usable now. Let's see. This one, again, the detailing really made this pop. Without the black detail on here, the carrots were kind of blah. But I think this one is just beautiful. This is one Karen did.
What did you do to do the black?
It is a fabric marker. I use pit pins, and I brought some for you guys to look at. So my friend Carol, who does this stuff all the time, says pit pins are the only ones she'll use because they're the only ones she has found that will make it through the washer without running. So if you've got a placemat or a pillow or something, you want to make sure you can be able to wash it. So she uses pit pins, so I do too. I'll just pass some of these around so you can just kind of take a look at technique. The green and purple here is cabbage cut in half. And you'll notice that some of the fruits and vegetables are done in realistic colors and many of them are not. Because when you get started going, yeah. Although I will say we did have purple carrots when we were doing this. So I'm making this out of placemats out of mine, and I'll go ahead and pass some of these around so you can see. I made the choice to I I haven't done the detail work on all of them, but I made the choice to use different prints on my border. The background for all of them will be the same. And I'll show you that. Here it is. This is my background fabric. But my fronts are all different. So you can pass these this way, and this way, just make sure. So when you're finished with they're washable though. When you're finished with all your painting and stenciling, you throw them in the dryer for 20 minutes on high, and that will set your paints. Now, I haven't actually done that and washed things, but Carol swears it works, and she does this all the time. So we're gonna trust Carol. What I found interesting was that once I got everything painted and I started putting them together as a placemat or a pillow top, you do the same process for the pillow. Adding the stitching creates a textural dimension that you don't realize you can do until you actually stitch it. So I'm going to pass some of Carol's around and the two that I have gotten to that point so that you can see as you add that. And you don't have to do fancy stitching. You can just do pass the corner. You can just do passes. That's what I just missed. So it really was a flower. Some of the flowers weren't really flowers to start with. You could do background stitching. This one is just meander stitched all over. If you were going to do this as a pillow top, I would suggest thinking about making your piece first, putting whatever trim around it you want to get the size you want. So I wanted a placemat this size, so I cut 3-inch borders to put all the way around it. And then quilt it, at least put a piece of batting behind it and stitch it down so that you get the advantage of that texturing. Because the texturing really, I think, made the designs. If I were going to do it as a placemat or as a pillow top, I would just use a piece of muslin as the bottom layer, pin them all together, and then just do whatever you feel like doing. That's what I'm going to do. Carol is a super perfectionist. And when she starts a project, she just goes, let's try this. So I'm going to pass around some of her stuff too, because her quilting is, she did a lot of quilting. And I think I'll just hold them for you. I'm not going to do that much quilting on mine because I don't want to. Every time we work. But I think it's beautiful. So we can lay these out on the table too. If you guys want to take a better look at them. We used all kinds. Oh, here's I love this one. So much fun with it. I said I'm making Christmas presents too. This one, I didn't want it to bleed into my sunflower because I loved the sunflower. I love sunflowers anyway, but this is actually a sunflower. I picked a sunflower, put some paint on it, dabbed it on there, added a little bit of green in the background. But I'll pass it around so that you can see I stayed away from the sunflower with my background color because I didn't want that edge of the sunflower to fade, to run. But I think it looks cool. This one is actually, those of you who've been to my house, you know I've got a huge garden. And my dilemma right now is just trying to keep track of where what is planted. And my husband will go out and then we're going to go, oh, look at that. That's really cute. What is that? I'm like, I don't know. This is a gladiola. Actually, I just took the gladiola, covered it with paint, smashed it down, and that's what I got. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. So then I went and got the leaves and stuck those in there too. This is lilies out of my pond. And that's the color the lilies were. So I tried to match my paint color to the color of what I was seeing. And I think this is going to be the starting piece for a pillow for the exchange. I'm not quite 100% sure.
So the pieces that you'll be stamping are 8x8, so if you
Yeah.
want to do 8.5 by 8.5, so if you want to use it, you can.
So we wanted to give you guys something big enough that you could actually make into a pillow if you wanted to. So what we have up here today are sunflower leaves, a juga, Lydia, all kinds of leaves because leaves are easy to do and not as messy as some of the other things. We do have an apple, and we have 6 colors of paint plus black and white. So you can get any color you want by blending that combination. So paper plate, paintbrushes, and you can have that.
So for each station, you will stand so that your paper plate's in front of you. So we have like 3 spaces on this side, 2 spaces on this side. So we do 5 people at a time. To get the paint out, what I like to do is if I want some white, I use the end of my paintbrush and put it on my plate.
And then she lays the paintbrush down and someone else.
And you wipe it off, and that doesn't happen. But if you don't, it does. It's no big deal. So you've got an extra paper towel under here, so you can use it to wipe your brush when it's wet. And then, yeah, and you keep the paper towel down just because it does come through. So anyway, are we ready, Donna?
I think we are.
All right.
So any questions?
Always go ahead.
Okay.
Artistry then.
No,
No,
it
it's
does.
absolutely no artistry. You can do this. You could do this with preschoolers. I mean, this is so simple. Now you're going to get. We are much more talented. We all have an artistic sense, so we're going to have beauty coming out of this. Right. The process is super easy. So each of you will have. The folders are just to keep the table clean, so we don't have such a mess. But you're going to stamp on this. There's a blanket under here so that there's a cushion for you to push into. So do we have a sample square?
Yeah.
Did you put some paint? Can you put some paint? So literally, you're going to take your paintbrush. It is Jack Iron textile paint. And again, I'm trusting my friend Carol that she knows what she's talking about. She always has before. And that's what she says she uses because it holds its color and stays through washing better. So you just take your paintbrush, pick out what you want to do. I'll do it now. And you cover it and you just literally paint it. And again, I'm using it at just about full viscosity, just the way it comes out of the jar. If you have to treat the fabric. No, don't have to do anything to the fabric. 100% cotton works really, really well. I've not tried other things, but I have a feeling if you were using anything that will absorb moisture, so natural fibers, I think will work fine. So literally you can do. So I've got multiple colors on there. I'm going to lay it down very artistically on my and I like to use a paper towel when I push it in because I don't mind getting my fingers dirty, but I really like the paint to come off eventually. And you just kind of press it down, and because there's some padding under it, you get a little bit more of the dimension than if you were doing it on a really hard surface. Just squish it around for a minute. So it's been squished. And you take it off. Is that not cool?
So also, when you're painting it, you can lay the object on the paper towel and paint it, not so much on the plate because you'll get lots of paper. We got tons of paper towels, so use them up.
And I have to tell you that my studio right now is full of paper towels that have the after image on it because I can't throw them away. My husband walked in and he goes, "What are you doing?"
So we do have a test piece over here if you want to test it out on each. Well, yeah, there's another test piece. And you can just test it out if you want to do that before you stamp it on yours. So we got aprons.
Or you can do real scrape and
Just go for it. All right,
So
guinea
Beth
pigs.
and Karen and I are here to help you. We're ready for the first 5.
Pick your collar.
Did you just do it like this? Well, I thought you said if you put it
Oh, you
down.
can set it down right here on the side.
Okay.
Yeah, like
That'll
that.
be better.
And we can reuse these stamps over and over. You just either leave the paint on it or you get